The station hung above Earth like a silver seed stitched to the dark, its ribs faintly glowing with the hum of the orbital shield. Commander Lila Moreno floated at node aft, checking a string of diagnostics that read as clean as a priest's conscience. Below her, the planet wore late spring clouds over the Atlantic, a slow swirl that always made her think of stirred milk. Mission briefings called this an integration flight. Humans and Union counterparts co-commanding the shield upgrade in 12 passes. Off the record, it was a proof of faith after a decade of careful courtship between prey-born allies and apex omnivores. Lila adjusted her boots into the mag rails and blinked the status tree into columns. Green, green, 1 amber, nothing red. She touched the glass with her gloved knuckle, a sailor's ritual in a world of mathematics, and felt the station answer. When the intercom clicked, she expected a routine check. Instead, she heard the thin edge of a problem trying to sound polite. "Commander, we're seeing a phase drift in segment 19, said flight engineer Rishi Banerjee, breath calm, vowels clipped by focus. "Magnitude?" she asked, though her tablet had already pulled up the spectral analysis like a nervous friend offering receipts. "0.3 radians creeping. It's ignoring our lockstep." His voice dipped, then flattened. A pilot refusing panic a chair. Phase drift meant the shield's interference nodes weren't dancing in true time. At small scale, it was noise. At scale, catastrophe. Lila pinched to zoom and watched the graph misbehave with the insolence of a metronome that hated music. "Routing control to manual sync," she said, and the AI in operations purred a warning about human latency under solar flux. "Override acknowledged," came the reply, warm and obedient, like a house trained to hand you knives by the handle. She exhaled through her nose, slow, and felt the station's heartbeat align with hers, one stubborn pulse at a time. There, Union co-lead drifted in from the starboard hatch, a lithe figure in ash-blue fabric, eyes set wide like a gazelle's. Name, Thalon of the Veskri. Liaison, field physicist, cultural diplomat who never raised his voice and never missed a beat. "Your manual sync is bold," Thalon said, tilting his head, feathers along his nape settling as if soothed by ritual. "Bold is what we call it when it works," Lila said. "Reckless if it doesn't." Humor was a bridge she'd learned, to build carefully. He touched a hollow, overlaying Union notation, curved glyphs and nested crescents, on her human graphs like two languages sharing a song. "The drift's source is not thermal," he murmured, "nor tidal from the moons. Passing. It is intention, without signature." Intention was a word the Union used for engineered anomalies when blame had not yet found a face. Lila felt the old weight settle on her shoulders. Command, suspicion, the quiet arithmetic of trust against risk. A flicker at the viewport stitched itself into a thread, auroral green where no aurora should be. The shield caught more than radiation. It caught silence, and sometimes silence had shape. "Solar wind spike," Rishi offered, but the Sun-Eye teleradio was boring as a rock. No flare, no hiss, just steady breath. "Collision warning at layer delta," the AI said, sterilized tone hiding the urgency it had been trained never to show. Lila toggled the feed and saw it. Micro debris tracing a curve like a thrown handful of glass on a trajectory too neat for chance. "Vector?" she asked. "South polar approach, transit in 3 minutes, cross with segments 1822. That was their neighborhood, their cables, their upgrade, their fault if something broke while their hands were in the machine. "Wake the repair pods," Lila said, and the station unfurled small silver gnats that carried welders, patch kits, and human hope. She routed herself along the rail, boots humming, body a practiced pendulum between modules, mind stepping 12 moves ahead. Thalon kept pace with impossible grace, long fingers scribing in the air, painting imaginary corridors for energy to prefer. "Commander," he said, "if the curve is intention, It is either a test or a warning. Pray, learn both. By bruises. Humans too, Lila said, and thought of academy drills, of misrouted valves, of scars she never photographed. Her mother used to say that the sky was enough for a person, that ambition above it was greed sewn to wings. Lila had learned to disagree gently at a distance of 400 kilometers. "We'll keep the sky," she whispered, "and the thing that protects it," as the station lights shifted to combat dusk. Somewhere deep in ops, a clock flipped into a faster hand, and every console leaned forward to listen. The debris arrived like an argument with proof, each fleck a physics statement in shining shard form. Repair pods darted from their berths, with the blunt bravery of bees carving intercept arcs across the projected path. "Pod 2 on Delta. Guidance nominal," Rishi called. "Pod 3 lagging. Magnetics yawing under layer variance." "Give 3 a subroutine leash from 2, Lila said, manual sync still running through her wrists like braided rope. At this altitude, every kilogram had opinions. At this speed, those opinions could write epitaphs. She watched the cord. Matrix update in jittery strokes, the way a seismograph betrays a coming confession. "Segments 19 through 21 are falling in and out," Thalen noted, voice still even, as if teaching a class through an earthquake. His calm wasn't disrespect. It was a tool. In the Union, steady voices were life rafts tossed into predator weather. The first impacts were glancing, a scatter of bright kisses off the shield's skin that left no scars but plenty of gossip. Then a larger piece tried to argue with a node mount, and Pod 2 swerved, delivering a thrust plume like a scolding hand. Metal evaporated into sparks that found the night and died. All drama with no tragedy this time. "Phase hold at point 2, Rishi said, chewing the numbers. "We've stalled the creep but not reversed it." In Lila's ear, the AI whispered. Predicted cascades, critical jitter thresholds, the unkind grace of failure modes. "Run me the what-ifs if we eat the drift for 10 more minutes, she said, and the fear tree grew theoretical fruit. Power costs spiked, then thermal loads, then a whisper of structural dynamic that stations only talk about in private. "Not acceptable," she said to the future. "We pull it back or we carve it out." Thalen floated closer, tapping into the manual sync, asking permission with a glance that held no threat and no apology. Lila gave it, and the second cursor joined hers on the rhythm grid, 2 hands guiding a stubborn choir. Union notation slid under human timing, and the nodes listened the way the body listens to a different dance partner. "You are teaching it to prefer the beat," Thalen murmured, "not forcing it to obey the count." "Metronomes get ignored," Lila said. "Drums get followed," and felt the station catch the metaphor like rain. Pod 3 stabilized. Pod 4 found courage, and the debris decided not to be a headline on this orbit. Rishi whooped once, short, embarrassed of his joy in a room that prized composure, and then went back to being professional. Phase error tucked its tail and retreated to a corner, promising to misbehave later when no one watched. "Origin analysis," the AI offered, as if ashamed of not having spoken sooner. Microcloud originated from a spent service module at 0712 UTC. Perturbations indicate deliberate release, it said. Deliberate made the room colder. Saboteur tasted like copper. "Who was on console?" Lila asked, already scrolling logs, eye flickers making paint strokes across a wall of time. "Automation flagged manual interject from Maintenance Bay Gamma," Rishi read, voice careful, each word placed like a tile. Gamma was 2 modules away, with a view of the southern limb, and a sickly green plant someone had named Carl. Lila pushed off, caught the handhold, zipped. Thalen followed, silent, a blue-gray shadow with a scientist's heart. She didn't let the word betrayal form fully in her mouth. It ate oxygen. Maintenance Bay Gamma smelled like warm plastic and old gloves, an aroma astronauts learn to forgive. Carl drooped in his pot, a symbol of earthly stubbornness, leaves browning like a bad omen. Bay logs showed access 12 minutes before release, credentials clean, biometrics perfect, cameras clean as erased slates. Too neat, Rishi said, drifting in behind them. Either a ghost or someone who wants us to think ghost. Leela crouched at the console, fingers ghosting over the keys, feeling the slight grit that no wipe catches. A hair caught the light, fine pale, too long to be Rishi, too light to be hers, too straight to be Thalon. DNA would tell stories later. Right now, the station told her a different one. Something internal, careful, patient. "Lock down all bays," she said, "and push manual sync to auto with the Thalon overlay for 20, because the sky still needed holding." She stared through the bay porthole at Earth, felt the pull of down like a memory of childhood playgrounds. Her mother's voice again. "The sky is enough. Keep your feet on the ground. Love is heavier than vacuum." Lila pinched the bridge of her nose and set that voice aside on a shelf for later comfort. "Commander," Thalon said softly, "pray. Cultures fear sabotage more than battle. We are trained to live in flocks, not among masks. Humans too," Lila said. "But we also learn to smile with masks when wolves come to dinner." He studied her for a heartbeat, then nodded, as if filing away a proverb that might save someone's life. Outside, the shield shimmered, a veil between storms, and the station's lights cycled from combat dusk back to working day. The drift was quieter, but quiet is where saboteurs like to talk. Crew meeting at Central Hub was orderly, clipped, the way serious people pretend they are not scared. Lila listened as Rishi walked through telemetry like a defense attorney cross-examining a weather report. Thalon offered a gentle lecture on phase preference theory, which sounded like a lullaby for frightened engineers. Security Officer Ava, Serrano floated at the periphery, hands tucked, eyes hunting, jaw feathering only when someone lied to themselves. The AI projected a model of the debris release and traced its pretty spiral until the room understood how ugly it was. "Any of you could have done it," Ava said flatly, not accusing, merely acknowledging the arithmetic of access. "Trust is not a light switch. It is a dimmer you fight over." Lila let silence sit long enough to make everyone earn their next breath. "We proceed as if the saboteur is competent and patient," she said, tone gone to steel without raising volume. "Every action leaves a heat signature. Every absence leaves a shadow," Ava added, as if quoting a catechism. Rishi adjusted his glasses, though they never fell, an old Earth habit he kept for luck. Thalon's feathers lifted, then settled, the Veskri equivalent of a sigh no one wanted to hear. "We keep the shield. We keep each other. No hero runs alone," Lila concluded, and made eye contact until no one looked away. Her command style was earned in simulators, in short nights, in long arguments with teachers who preferred cleaner math. People wanted her certainty to be contagious. Today, she needed theirs to be stubborn. The hub lights clicked to a brighter temperature as if to say the room agreed. Work followed like a river finding its old banks. Checklists, handovers, ritual, the liturgy of survival. Lila took the spare EVA to segment 20, feeling the suit's stiff joints translate her will into polite hydraulics. Earth rolled beneath her like an argument already won, blue and white insisting on beauty while she hunted ugliness. She clipped along the truss, a metronome of clacks, and sang the sync beat under her breath because it kept the station honest. "Eyes on your 6, Ava's voice came, security watching through 1,000 institutional pupils. Thalon floated. Inside, calibrating node couplers with the care of a surgeon stitching a child's face. Rishi's laughter crackled suddenly and died as he muted himself. Someone had told a bad joke and it had saved a minute anyway. On segment 20's mount, She found a hairline scar no log admitted to, the kind welders call a liar. Under magnification, the scar wasn't thermal. It was solvent smooth, as if a careful hand had persuaded metal to forget. There was residue that read wrong under spectrum, an adhesive with union markers but human binder ratios. That's not stock, Rishi said quietly, peering through her feed. That's somebody's kit bag chemistry. Thalen said nothing for a count of 7 then. Our labs share methodologies, but this ratio is human. In a room that tried to be a family, the word human could be knife, mirror, medicine, or all three. Lila felt defense flare in her chest, then caged it because truth needed air more than pride needed comfort. Log it, sample it. Don't point until the numbers can stand on their own, she said. Below, thunderheads marched over the Amazon, looking like mountains that had learned how to breathe. They were 2 orbits into the shift when the station blinked, light dim to bright, a heartbeat skip no one enjoyed. Power sag at node 3, the AI reported, too calm, the way doctors talk when they've seen this before and hated it each time. Redistribute through beta loop, Lila ordered, assuming a garden variety burp, until alarms stacked like dominoes in a tight room. Beta loop refused to accept load, reporting phantom current at junction E. Phantom meaning the log said yes and the wires said no. Kill the lie! Ava snapped, and Rishi cut the junction from the topology like amputating a finger to save a hand. The station steadied, then listed a half-degree west as gyros fought a gust that shouldn't exist. External torque moment? Lila asked, already slamming herself along the rail toward junction E. Thalen met her halfway, eyes wide now, prey not from fear, but from math. Something outside had pushed. They reached the viewport as the auroral green returned, not where the sun asked it to be, but where it wanted. The shield shimmered like a curtain in a draft, and on the far limb something burned a hole in silence, not debris this time, motion with intention, a sleek, dark dot riding the station's wake as if hiding in a ship's shadow. Untracked. Vehicle, the AI said, and the words tasted like criminal at a family reunion. Ava's hand was already on the emergency seal release, voice level. We're not alone. Thalen's feathers rose, then flattened like a field in wind. Predator tactic, he whispered. The kind that tests fences. Lila's breath fogged her helmet for one unprofessional second, and the smear felt like a confession. Sky isn't enough, she murmured, borrowing her mother's warning and rewriting it into a vow. So we'll make it be. The intruder rode their wake like a remora with graduate degrees, matching micro-thrusts so precisely it felt like mockery. Ava plotted its path in pale blue, the line hugging their trajectory until it braided with the shield's geometry. Range. Is 50 meters and closing, the AI reported, voice sanded smooth, the way good tools never panic. Lila toggled exterior cams, sleek, dark hull, no registry, heat signature flatter than a plate of night. Thalen's feathers rippled once, then smoothed, a disciplined calm returning as he traced field lines in the hollow. If it skims the interference nodes, it can ghost under our diagnostics, he said, admiration and worry sharing a sentence. Rishi hissed between his teeth, a habit from atmospheric flying days. That's a surgeon, not a brawler. Then we closed the operating room, Lila said, hands already moving to rephase the local lattice by half a beat. The rephase plan was elegant cruelty, a gentle push that made the space around segment 20 slightly unfriendly. Not a strike, not a shove, just a rhythm change predators hate because it steals their timing and spoils their hunt. Thalen laid union glyphs over her timing tree, curving the beat so it felt like current rather than command. Rishi fed pods into anchor points, turning the truss into a loom with new tension on familiar threads. Ava armed non-lethals, foam darts that expand into sticky lattices, microjammers that make guidance systems stutter mid-syllable. The AI counted down in breaths rather than numbers. Each exhale a reminder that bodies and machines share tempos. "Execute," Lila said, and the station's skin thrummed like a drumhead tuned a half-step higher than comfortable. Outside, the intruder blinked its lights. No, not lights, reflections, and drifted exactly where the new beat felt worst. Flinched. Barely but enough, and the foam darts leapt, blossoming into a translucent net that loved friction. The intruder tried to roll. The net hugged tighter, wicking heat and stealing angular momentum like a polite thief. "Microjammers on!" Ava ordered, and guidance hiccuped, a dancer losing count in front of a silent crowd. The craft bumped, the truss. A kiss that left a bruise and stuck at a 40-degree tilt, like an embarrassed cat. "Seal exterior hatches, treat as hostile until it writes poetry," Lila said, and no one argued with her metaphors today. Thalen floated close, to the viewport, studying a seam on the intruder's hull that looked grown, not welded. Not Union, he decided softly. Not one of ours. And not fully human either. Rishi swallowed. A hybrid, then. Someone borrowing both toolboxes to build a sin. Ava led the boarding detail with Lila and Thalen in tow, Rishi on comms, the AI's eyes in every corner. The lock cycled with a sigh, and their boots clicked onto an interior that smelled like antiseptic and ambition. No chairs, no nameplates, no decals, surfaces matte and forgiving, like they expected audits by hostile fingers. A single console blinked with a heartbeat line, then flattened as Ava's override kissed it with legal force. "Recorders rolling," Rishi said, voice tinny in their helmets. "I'm ghosting its bus so it can't phone home." Thalen ran a scanner along the seam he'd noticed, and the display bloomed with signatures, Union polymers, human binders, unknown catalysts. "Cross-culture fabrication," he murmured, "designed to pass through both of our nets by appearing as either until someone looks too closely." "Someone looked," Lila said, hand hovering over a storage bay latch. "Let's see what—" "They wanted us to deliver." The bay hissed open to reveal a case the size of a violin and the shape of a lie told well. Inside lay a node, sleek, black, ribbed with faint channels, too heavy for its volume, too quiet for its purpose. Thalen's feathers rose. "That is not a bomb," he said, "but it is how you make trust malfunction." Ava's eyes narrowed. "An interference seed. Plug it near a control lattice, and it teaches the system to ignore the right orders." Rishi exhaled into the mic, a small sound that still shook. "Put that in our shield and you could tune panic into policy." Lila sealed the case, tagged it, and felt the story reframe. Not sabotage as spectacle, but sabotage as curriculum. "Whoever built this doesn't want us dead," she said. "They want us doubting each other until the sky falls by committee." "Which is how you kill a flock," Thalen finished, and the three of them stood in the intruder's quiet, listening, to their own breathing. Interrogation is a big word for a small room where people try to keep language from breaking. Ava set the node on the table between them like a bad omen they refused to throw away. Lila addressed the crew in shifts, questions stripped of theater, answers stripped of pride, logs bleeding onto screens. Rishi chased phantom calls through. The station's backbone, finding whispers in subroutines that looked like they'd been written by saints. Thalen drafted a memo in careful Union legalese arguing that the node constituted epistemic aggression, a crime older than words. The AI stacked anomalies into a neat pyramid, each block labeled with time, place, access, motive, probability. Neatness felt insulting. Outside, the shield held through 2 auroral sweeps and 1 solar burp, proof that duty maintains posture even when trust slouches. Carl the plant, watered by a contrite technician, perked 1 leaf as if to suggest resilience had a sense of humor. The forensics came back mean. Skin cell on the Gamma console belonged to a tech on leave, last seen 3 days ago. Security sweeps found her locker empty, bunks unrumpled, toothbrush missing, gaps that stacked like holes in a story card. Docking. Logs said, no departures. Station cams said nothing. It wanted to say, the intruder had no passenger bay worth the name. Ghost still fits, Ava muttered, hating the word because you can't handcuff a metaphor. Thylon angled the node toward the lights, canals glistening like the underside of a stilled shark. If installed, he said, this would teach the shield to prefer private beats, subnets of obedience answering to a different drummer. Which drummer? Rishi asked, and the question hovered, fat and unhelpful, over the table. Lila wrote 2 words on the slate. Who benefits? And the room got colder in a way heaters cannot fix. They plotted motives the way sailors plot coasts. Soundings, guesses, old charts with dragons scribbled for honesty. A human faction that hated the Union and wanted the sky to choose sides by falling. A Union hardliner who feared predators and decided to sabotage by proxy to prove an ancient sermon. A third voice, not theirs, that wanted Earth and the Union busy doubting each other while other hands built taller fires. Rishi traced funding trails that vanished into charities that fed real mouths and fake accounts with equal efficiency. Ava found 3 unsigned memos encouraging resilience testing tucked into a bureaucratic avalanche, plausibly deniable breadcrumbs. Thylon's legal memo expanded into a doctrine suggestion: how to prosecute crimes done by tools that look like your own. The AI offered statistics that comforted no one. 91% certainty this was phase 1 of more. Lila felt the weight of command like a harness. It chafed, but it also kept her from falling. Night passes are jokes in orbit, but they still felt this one. Earth's dark limb rising like a lid closing on a jar. Alarms ticked in polite voices, stress made kind by HR guidelines, as the phase drift returned with better arguments. Segment 19 again, Rishi reported, bitterness trimmed but audible. It likes that joint the way rust likes hinges. Lila rerouted sync, fingers and gaze making the station breathe to a human drum she could keep steady under fire. Thalen tuned the curve, adding softness to the beat where prey instincts relax and stop looking for teeth. Ava posted pairs to every bay, no one alone. Predator lessons applied in the service of flock safety. The node sat in a Faraday crib like a poisonous crown no one wanted to wear and no one dared ignore. Hold, Lila told the station, the Yatadai crew herself, and the word folded around them like a blanket held by many hands. Then the intruder's parent arrived, bigger, colder, a silhouette at the edge of censor honesty. Not a leviathan, not today, but heavy enough to make their gyros whisper prayers to the gods of damping. It held at a distance that was both respectful and threatening, etiquette with a knife under the napkin. Broadcast received, the AI announced, and the waveform unfurled. A clean carrier, an old protocol, a new tone. Thalen translated on instinct. Yield the node, cease integration, accept audit, preserve partnership. Then paused, feathers lifting. There's a subscript, he added, eyes narrowing. A prey language trick. The word for audit shares a root with culling. Rishi swore softly. Ava's hand drifted near the non-lethal rack. Lila let her breath slow until the room borrowed the rhythm. We answer, she said, but we don't bow. And the shield brightened outside like a spine straightening under a familiar weight. Her reply was a braid of honesty and steel. We found your tool. It will not enter our sky. We invite your science, not your leash. Thalen added a verse in Union cadence, a promise of transparency edged with a reminder that flocks choose their own shepherds. Ava appended a security codicil that read like a smile with good teeth. Any approach without consent meets soft force first. They sent it on 3 carriers, 2 redundancies, and 1 old ham frequency for good luck because sailors still live, in astronauts. The parent craft waited 1 minute, then 2, then turned its nose a whisper and began to retreat along an arc of practiced indifference. Not finished, Thalen said, and Lila agreed. Predators learn by testing, and today they had learned the fence was awake. Rishi slumped back, finally laughing without muting. The sound shocked and human and worth bottling. Lila touched the viewport, Earth, filling her palm from the wrong side of forever, and promised the sky she'd keep being enough.